Welcome to Supes On, a podcast where we discuss the super family and all forms of media, Superman, Supergirl. Today we're going to be discussing the first episode of Season 2, The Adventures of Supergirl. I'm Jeremy Bruner, amateur Superman, Supergirl expert, and joining me is John McBride.
Also a Superman and Supergirl expert.
So today we'll be discussing whether or not Adventures of Supergirl is Supes On. What does that mean, John?
That simply means, did this help the super brand in general? Did it change your mind if you originally thought Superman, or in this case Supergirl, was boring? Did it progress the character in general? And today we're going to find that out.
And do be warned that there are going to be spoilers for possibly absolutely anything that's ever taken place within the Superman universe, as we do sometimes get off topic. Now, let's get into it. All right, John, so The Adventures of Supergirl.
Starting off strong on the CW.
Very strong start.
Yeah, this thing, I mean, just right from the get-go, I was having fun watching this episode.
Yes.
Supergirl, I mean...
Starting right where we left off last season.
Yeah.
Actually, a little bit before where we left off.
Right, the cast is having a toast to defeating Zod.
Yeah.
And then they see...
Well,
not
Zod.
Non.
I
don't know what you were watching. I just rewatched Superman 2. What are you talking about? Non, of course, Non. Yeah, they were celebrating the defeat of Non and his mind control things.
Yes.
And what do you know? Another rocket comes crashing down, crashing their party, some would say.
Must be another Kryptonian, right?
Yeah, I don't know. We may or may not find out. Well, we got to see a nice little fill-in of Martian Manhunter and Supergirl.
Yes. Yeah.
We got to see a little bit more. Now, do you think that was kind of unnecessary? I think that was just to show the new audience, hey, this is what Martian Manhunter is.
I think so too, just for the people that had not potentially watched the first season.
Those people are called most of America.
That are now. That is technically true. But I imagine if you're tuning in on the CW, like, surely most people would have gone back and binge season 1 on Netflix.
Yeah, I don't think CW had anything to worry about with previous fans jumping on board. I don't think if you already like this show, you are only doing better.
Yes, for sure. It'll be interesting to see what the ratings are comparatively to.
And wouldn't that be a nice, sticking it to you for CBS? This is what you had, and
now look at it.
Yeah, and it's so much better now.
Yeah, now look, when we don't stick them down in a cave, we give them a nice penthouse view. Everyone tunes in.
And I don't know what the budget is like, but...
It's much less.
Much less. But you know what? I didn't really see any real differences.
No, there was at toward the beginning, they had the Challenger launch.
Well, not the Challenger. It was like the Venture.
Oh, yeah, the Venture.
We are recording right after we watch the episode.
Yes, do forgive us. And that the whole CGI scene in space, that wasn't the greatest CGI.
No,
it was fine for what it was.
And you know what? I was watching it thinking, classic CW CGI. It looks the same. I swear they haven't changed their CGI budget in like 10 years because it all kind of looks the same.
See, I would disagree because I feel like on Legends of Tomorrow, they go all out on their CGI.
Well, that's where all the money went. So I would think if you're going to put your CGI into one show, you can't have, Rip Hunter on like a styrofoam ship. He's in a spaceship that can travel through time. He's going to need some cash.
They end up just switching the money over to Supergirl in season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow. They're all just in those little glass time bubbles.
Yeah, they don't even travel on a ship anymore. They instantaneously appear places. And in every period they go to is like last year.
Yeah. So we did see a few things with the differences with the CW. They don't have access to that cave set anymore, so they moved the DEO. The DEO is now in the nice little penthouse office building,
which is very convenient. I mean,
for sure, it's only a block away from Alex's apartment. I mean, talk about being able to walk to work.
And I loved how Kara was like, "This was here the entire time."
Yeah,
they're like, "Yeah, of course." And I love how, like, right from the get-go, it's like, Wynn's here. He knows everything about learning Kryptonian.
We've discussed this in some of our previous stuff. It just seems like in every show, there's that one friend who isn't just good with computers, is one of the best hackers or the best computer minds on Earth. And he just happened to be working IT at Catco. And luckily he met Kara. Could you imagine? He could have just been working at Catco in their IT department for the rest of his life as one of the most brilliant minds.
Right. I mean, maybe because he's the son of Toyman or something.
Yeah.
I guess that has something to do with it. But it's funny. He's just hanging out at the DEO, already there, learning Kryptonian because he was bored.
Yeah.
And, like, does Cat Grant even know that he isn't there? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
She barely knew he was there to begin with, so...
She was too busy yelling at Miss Tessmacher.
Yeah, this is, I think it's safe to assume this is the only Tessmacher in this universe.
Yeah.
Meaning Tessmacher was not active as any...
Though, to be fair, so this is reference to the Superman 1, the movie, where Lex's, one of his henchmen was Miss Tessmacher, and the other one was Otis. And did you notice that Lex, when Wynn met Superman, he talked about the time you stopped Lex from doing the earthquake.
Right.
So it could be that this is the Donnerverse.
Hey, we don't know. It could be a continuation, which would technically include Superman Returns, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Well, or they could just be Superman 1 and then this, sort of like Superman
True.
Returns ignored 3 and 4.
Which, you can't really blame him. But, which is, hey, and if you want to hear our full review of Superman the movie, go to Supes On Podcast.
That's right. We have all of our previous episodes available there. But I did just make a big reveal. Superman is in Supergirl now.
That sounded so nasty.
It's not weird on Krypton.
Big Blue himself, live action,
yeah,
in costume, using powers.
Yes.
Come on, Tom Welling.
I know.
What's your problem?
Come on, Tom. But it was so awesome to see him. I was wondering how the first reveal was going to be, because it was either going to be the running through the alley, classic, or the phone booth. But then I was like, phone booths don't really exist anymore.
And he would look like I mean, he wouldn't look that crazy running in an alley, but he would look like he's maybe like a drug addict or something. So, yeah, and we get a really good performance by Tyler Hoechlin.
Yes.
I had to look up his Twitter to find out how to pronounce that correctly. I'm glad I did, because I would have been like, Hoechlin? Something? The guy from Teen Wolf, apparently, I did not watch. But I thought he did really good. I
liked
like
him. Confused with the Michael J. Fox Teen Wolf.
No, or Teen Wolf 2, the sequel.
That's right.
But I thought he was killing it as Superman, and that's just what I was thinking before. Because, when they first revealed, they released the promotional cast photos and stuff, I was like, I don't know if he really looks the part. I don't know about the costume. Doing my typical nerd thing, immediately hating it when it comes out.
And I did my typical fanboy thing. This is going to be awesome. This is fantastic.
Two ends of the different nerd spectrum here. But I did come to the conclusion, and I think it came true one way or the other. I was like, he is going to be the perfect Superman for this show.
Yes, and he is.
And he very much is. I was like, he's probably not going to be anybody's favorite Superman of all time, but he's going to be the perfect Supergirl CW Superman.
I imagine he will be some people's. I imagine there's probably people that are probably, between the ages maybe of like anywhere from like 8 to 13 or 14 that this will be their Superman.
And you know what? One episode, I already like him better than Henry Cavill as in the Man of Steel Superman versus Batman. You can also hear a Superman versus Batman review at supesonpodcast.com.
Now, I don't know. He hasn't won me over that much.
Oh, I'm immediately on Team Hoechlin.
I do have to say though, so yes, I take that back. He actually probably has won me over more than Henry Cavill in the fact that, but I don't think it's so much necessarily to do with him, so much as to do with the writing. I like how they write this Superman
because he's fun. He's not like, he has nobody saying you're a false god and he's like all dark and brooding. He's a fun Superman.
And for those of you tuning in for the first time, John, your favorite Superman in general?
In general?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very partial to Smallville because Smallville was awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm like a lot of people, I mean, the original Superman movie, which were reviewed, I think when I think of Superman live action, it's still what I think about.
It's Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, I still have a soft spot for Smallville because we watched so much of it.
Yeah.
But still, the standard bearer is going to be Christopher Reeves. I think for a lot of people, myself included.
for me, for those of you, whenever I think of Superman live action, honestly, I think of Dean Cain.
And you kind of get the best of both worlds here.
So, and that was what I grew up with the the New Adventures. What?
Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman.
Of Superman.
We reviewed the pilot, and you can listen to that episode on Supes On Podcast.com.
Yeah, it's a really good. Adventures of Lois and Clark was great. Christopher Reeves was great. Tyler Hoechlin,
I think
great.
I was a little nervous before, but I think he's killing it.
He did. I love the one thing that John was most upset about before going into this episode when we saw photos of him, the thing that he was not really upset about, the thing he was just the most whiny about was Superman doesn't look old enough within this show. And man, let me tell you, they knocked that out of the park.
Yeah, they just take care of it. And in our season 1 recap, available on the website, that was one of the things that was brought up. It's like the age difference in those 12 years. And one of the things I loved about it was everything was explained. Like, that's one of the that's what really won me over about this show. It doesn't matter if it's some stupid little aside, it gets explained. I'm like, that makes me believe in their world so much more.
When filling in for the audience, like, hey, shouldn't you be older?
Yeah, it reminded me of like when The Flash first came on and everybody's like, hey, Grant Gustin looks 12.
Yeah.
And they kind of address that, and they nail it. They kind of just...
And then move on.
Yeah, they nip it in the bud, and they just move on. This is not the focus of the show, and I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I love that. I also love that it was Win. Like, Win, it does feel like in season 1, Win was the audience fill-in, I felt, for a lot of different things. There were several different things where he was just like, wow, how does that work? What is this? This is awesome. But I feel like and I'm glad to see that that's continuing. I was a little unclear. So we were talking about earlier how Win is the best IT person in the universe.
Yeah.
And he was just working at Catco. Well, he was officially offered a job with the DEO. Does this mean that he's quitting Catco, or is he gonna be working at both places still for plot?
It's unclear as of now. They didn't really come out and say it. This is one of the things that hasn't been specifically explained, and if they don't, I don't know how much I care. But I would assume that Win is done with Catco, because why would he continue to work? Because I would assume at this point he's kind of over Kara. He doesn't think he can get with her.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of done, and he's moving on.
I imagine they're going to honestly phase out the Catco office building other than Cat's office, because now that Kara is a reporter, James is a photographer, and if Win no longer works there, we don't need all those little workspace sets.
And I'm afraid that the further they distance themselves from Catco, we're going to see less of Cat. And Cat Grant is like our favorite character.
Yeah, for sure.
In fact, I was actually a little surprised to see Calista Flockhart back, to be honest with you.
I'm glad. Oh, that would have been horrible.
It's so awesome that she's back. Well, you mentioned Win and all of his amazing powers. We have part of the thing we do, if you're a new listener, is, and we'll get to this later, but we go over the powers used and they're used efficiently. I feel like we should be not only listing Kara's powers used, but Win's powers as well.
If we're doing that, we have to list Kat's powers as well, because let me tell you, her speech about diving in, what a freaking fantastic speech.
Yeah, well written, well delivered by Calista Flockhart.
Yes.
I will say there's one power Win has been slacking on, and that is amazing costume making powers. I feel like he should be making costumes. Him and Vibe from Flash, you just make costumes for people,
Yeah.
That's what you should do. Now, here's the thing about this episode. I was really excited because it's Superman, a live action, in costume, using powers, right? I was afraid that he would be so cool, and rightfully so. I mean, he's Superman. You can't have a whole season of television building him up just to have him kind of suck.
Right.
So he's appropriately awesome.
He is.
But I'm also like, is he going to be too awesome to the point where I think I'd rather just see a Superman show? Because you got him. You know what I mean? And we may not care as much about Supergirl.
I think they did a good job of making us still care. And it seems to me like this season, and several aspects in this episode made me sort of feel this way, that this season is going to be almost like Kara trying to live up to, You know, that sort of standard. Because even when they weren't as Superman, Supergirl, when they were Clark and Kara in Lena's office, that's Lena Luthor, which we'll get into in a little bit, they were interviewing her, and it was like Kara was essentially just almost following him around like a puppy dog, like copying, emulating what he did, and things like that. So it sort of seems like, I really think that they might have Superman be a regular throughout the first part of this season.
Yes.
They showed some tension between him and Martian Manhunter over the fact that he keeps kryptonite. I could see that coming to a head around the mid-season. And then after that, we don't see him as often. He becomes a guest star.
Yeah, I would really like it if Superman just doesn't go away, because they got a guy cast, they got a costume, they're good to go. One note about the costume. I mean, overall, I like the costume more than I thought I would, but I still think that cape is going to snap off at any moment, you know, because it looks so flimsy. The cape looks too big for him, you know.
And you got to have the cape for aerodynamics, as Wynn learned in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, Superman should just go to Wynn. He makes a new costume for you. He can even make a costume for John Jones, even though he doesn't need one. One thing, I was talking about how cool Superman is, and he is, but when he reconnects with Jimmy, when he sees Jimmy again for the first time after a long time, he said, "Hey, what's up, Jimmy?" Jimmy's like, because he's cool, Jimmy, he like towers over Clark Kent. I'm like, you can't have Jimmy Olsen be able to dunk on Superman. That's not right.
And they did do some very obvious camera things to try to make it not seem as obvious. But yeah, that is very true. Well, Jimmy grew up. He's no longer a Cub reporter.
I was waiting, like, come on, Clark. Even though it would make no sense for you to say this now, but say something like, well, I remember when you were just a short little guy. Like, wouldn't be such a not natural.
I see you're not wearing the bow ties anymore, Jimmy.
Like, it makes no sense for Clark to say this at all at this point in time. Like, just say something to help me out. Because why Jimmy's 7 feet tall?
So this is sort of going into that whole thing when, because this is when Clark and Kara first walked into Catco, and Cat was like, "You didn't tell me you knew Clark Kent." I did find that a little bit interesting, that it's like she's been working with Cat for over a year, and it never came up.
Yeah, I mean, you have Jimmy on the payroll. You figured you would have been hounding Jimmy like, "Hey, why don't you call your buddy Clark?"
Well, I mean, I don't think Cat's not that type of person. She's not gonna she might have been throwing herself at Clark when he came in there, but she's not gonna make Jimmy and her employees
I think
super self-aware.
I mean, Jimmy even said Cat once sent Clark a drunk text.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, if she is doing that, maybe she would have tried a little harder. I don't know. It just came off as sort of, would Cat just absolutely have no idea? I guess so. Cat's so self-absorbed, then maybe.
And it's not like it would necessarily come up. I'd never talked to my boss about my cousin.
You don't? That's so weird.
But at the same time, my boss didn't used to, as far as I know, who knows? Maybe I need to, because maybe my boss and my cousin used to work together.
If you know about Jeremy's boss and cousin, email us at supesonpodcast@gmail.com.
It's the talk of the week.
The super soap. I don't know. I was trying to think of something,
but so let's talk a little bit. So early on, we do get to meet Lena Luthor.
Yeah, the sister of Lex Luthor, the younger sister. Yes, it is the younger sister.
Okay. Yes. And so I feel like this character did have one of the weakest lines in the script, which was as she was getting on a helicopter. Statistically, flying is the safest way to travel, but I still get uneasy.
I was like, that's really corny. And Supergirl does a good job of not being too corny.
Yeah.
Because Supergirl, I think that's what a lot of people were afraid of when they were first watching it in its first season. Because like, oh, here we go. Here's going to be the corn train coming along, starring Melissa Benoist. But I looked at it and I was like, maybe it's a callback to a very obscure reference to Superman Returns, when Superman saves the people on the plane. And he was like, statistically, flying an airplane is the safest way to travel. Gotta go. Gotta go be on Legends of Tomorrow. I'll see you later.
So what did you think of Lena?
Lena was fine. I'm just like, I guess you're the default new Lucy, because Lucy was just gone.
Oh, that's true.
Lucy Lane is out of here. And I can't say if she really is gone, I can't say I'm going to miss Lucy too much.
No, I guess you went back to work with the General.
Yeah, I guess. Or maybe she just quitting the military, then going back to the military, quitting the military, because that's how you can do it in real life.
Well, after Jimmy broke up with her, she didn't have a reason to stick around Catco anymore.
Yeah, I think she's going to be like how Whitney was in Smallville. He kind of served his purpose, then he had to go away.
Yeah.
She was like the romantic obstacle, and after that was done, it was like, well, Lucy, you kind of outlived. But wasn't she was in charge of the DEO at one point.
Yeah, but that was only because Hank was out. Like, once Hank came back.
True.
I mean, she's part of the military, the army, not part of the DEO.
I mean, I imagine Lucy's very busy.
She's probably in Syria.
She's in Syria right now. She is single-handedly stopping ISIS.
Hopefully, what happened to Whitney does not happen to her, and we don't just have a random death off screen, because that would not be.
Yeah, this off-screen death where, like, oh, I guess we should feel bad, but it was Whitney, and we kind of stopped caring.
Yeah. I'm very glad we gave the spoiler tag for everything previously Superman related. Yeah. But so the one thing that I hope with Lena and this show, so I thought it was odd when Kara as Supergirl was like, I'll go and protect Lena, when they figured out that she was going to be the target of this attack. I was kind of expecting her to go to Lena as Supergirl and sort of be working that angle, but then in the next scene we have, it's Kara and Lena just sort of walking, and Kara's Kara. And I love that, and I like the fact that they seem to genuinely like each other, and I would love for them to become friends on the show. I would love for that to almost develop into a Lex Clark dynamic, almost from Smallville.
Yeah.
I would love for them to become friends, even if, nothing, I mean, traditionally, so speaking from the comics, like traditionally, Lena a lot of times...
It's our fact and stat, I guess.
Yeah, our facts and stat. Lena a lot of times sells people out to Brainiac. But, maybe that's not going to happen this time. Maybe she's just a nice, normal person, and her and Kara can become friends.
Part of me, I'm conflicted, because part of me is like, I want Lena just to be evil eventually, because it seems like that's what she is here for. But another part of me is like, why can't she just be good?
She could be the good version of Maxwell Lord, essentially, who is also gone.
Speaking of Maxwell Lord, is MIA.
Yeah.
Is he just gone from the series? That's something I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if the actor is coming back or not, so I guess we'll find out eventually. Because it seems like they're replacing him with Cadmus.
Yeah, Cadmus was introduced at the end of this episode, and what a shame, because I liked Maxwell Lord a lot.
He was very good.
And I guess if he isn't there, I'm trying to remember now the last thing we saw him do. He was just kind of around.
It was during the fight with Non. He helped come up with the way to broadcast everywhere. He was wanting to do a thing that was going to kill the entire city or whatever.
Yeah.
But then Kara said, no, we have to do our message of hope, which I really did like with that. So the main point of Superman and Supergirl and everything in general is they're supposed to be inspiring.
True.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is they're supposed to be an inspiration, and they talked about that a lot toward the end of this episode. They gave the whole inspiration speech, which I thought was just very point on. Once again, expertly delivered by Calista Flockhart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was really good.
And it's going to be interesting with no Max going forward, if that is indeed the case. I mean, there's room for the show to not have him, obviously.
Yeah.
But he was a huge part of the first season. And in the world, it's going to be like, well, are people just not going to talk about using Maxwell Lord iPads and stuff?
Flashpoint.
Yeah, there you go. That other CW show, The Flash. If they come back and explain it, hey, Flashpoint, Barry's greedy manipulation of the time stream.
Yeah.
When Barry Allen decided to play God and abandon all of his friends.
Yeah.
This isn't like a Flash recap, but you can kind of hear my feelings of the Flash season premiere for season 3 kind of seeping in here. But there you go, Flashpoint. And maybe we'll...
Maxwell Lord never existed now.
There is no Maxwell Lord.
Yeah.
There is only...
Lena Luthor.
Oh, yeah. I was going to go with Oberon, but... his midget friend from Apocalypse. Little person friend from... I don't know, maybe on Apocalypse they're still called midgets. I don't know.
So I would like to just talk about one scene in particular here in this episode, which I felt was the best scene of the episode. And that was so there's Kara's escorting Lena to the little to her podium because she's gonna change Lex Core or Luthor Core. I can't remember what it was to L Core. And there's an explosion. The building starts to fall, and you have Clark and Kara both holding up the building.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, so there's a few things that happened here that were just amazing. So as soon as the explosions happen, that was like, that explosion is, to me, was a turning point, it seemed, for Kara as a character. Okay. Very first thing she does, it explodes, bam, Jimmy saves somebody, Kara saves Jimmy. And that's just sort of like, you have that little moment of, whatever. Then she looks up and she sees the building collapsing. Like, she's saved things like the whole Jimmy save. That's all normal routine.
Yeah. Then
she looks up, sees a building starting to fall. Goes up there, showing she's moving up to, bigger sort of things. Mm-hmm. But she's still been there before. That's where she's been.
Yeah.
Holding it up. Clark comes up, holding it up with her. And then just like Kat told her earlier in the episode, she literally dove down and solved all of the issues by fixing the building. It was just so well put together.
Yeah, it was definitely a moment for Kara to shine, and definitely a moment to display her growth as a character. She's being so much smarter, and it really shows the difference as how much she's learned from the beginnings of season 1.
And then that scene, so the other things that make that scene so perfect to me, so this is being intercut, all of this is happening, is being intercut with scenes of Alex fighting John Corbin, and what was a really pretty good fight scene.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah,
which it just really shows off, like, hey, Alex isn't. It reminds anybody who hasn't seen the show, or it reminds people who may have forgotten. Hey, don't forget, Alex is a badass.
Yeah, and I'm glad Alex got something to do because she was sort of left out. She didn't have as much to do in this episode,
other than talk about how Clark smells. And
smells good. We should clarify. It smells good.
Yes.
Like, everybody wanted to bone Clark in this show.
That is true. And then the other thing I love about this scene was it showed that Lena has being a killer inside her. So we literally have Kara moving her game up to the next level. We have the callback to Kat talking about you have to dive, and Kara literally diving. Then we have Alex being a badass, and it shows Lena. It shows Lena can be a killer, and it also even showed Clark willing to be not in the spotlight. It showed that Clark was willing to let Kara be in that spotlight. It was
a very necessary moment for this show, because the show is called Supergirl, not Superman and his cousin. Superman is awesome, but if he would have been the one that actually saves the day and it was still just Supergirl, like, I hope to one day be as cool as you, Clark.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people would be invested.
Nobody.
It had to be Supergirl who did it.
Yes.
And I thought that was... And if you think about it now, as awesome as Clark is, I'm loving this Clark here. I'm pleasantly surprised how much I liked this Clark. But the way he's written, he's sort of a little too perfect, and he's kind of flawless, and he is Superman. So to the outside perspective, much like a lot of people, that kind of the whole point of this podcast, he would in fact be boring. So if this was a Superman solo series, he'd have so much more to do.
Right.
But this is sort of like how people see Superman, and that's just it. And he is perfect.
That's true.
And that means he actually is boring. So it kind of gives us an insight to a lot of people with their outlook on Superman, who I say we don't try to win over, but a lot of times I pretty much do try to.
I'd say, to me though, like I completely agree with you, because the only sort of inner depth, the thing that doesn't make Superman flawless, is you have to be able to know his personal struggles, his things like that. And the only real thing we kind of have on that is the whole deal between him and Hank Henshaw with the kryptonite thing, whereas, he thinks all the kryptonite should be destroyed because it could be used to hurt him, refusing to acknowledge the fact that there could be a bigger threat that they need this for.
Yeah, and this is why you need people like Hank Henshaw, who's, Martian Manhunter's basically playing the role of Batman in this regard.
Yeah.
Not that Bruce Wayne's the only guy who thinks Kryptonians could go nuts at any second, but typically when you see somebody doing something about it, it's a lot of the time falls on Batman.
Or the U.S. military.
Countless times. But namely, if we want to put a name on it, it's typically Batman. At least that's what I think. But I'm glad Martian Manhunter, it's very fitting that John Jones took this role. And he's very smart.
Mm-hmm.
You need kryptonite.
Yeah.
And is it selfish of Clark to not want one of the few things that can kill him just around? Is it not being responsible on his part? Because Kara just seems, there you go, green K, fine.
Yeah. She didn't really mind it.
And she can basically be an example to Clark.
And they've actually even, like, in the show, to be fair on this, like, I guess, like, well, I mean, now they've even found out the way to make the synthetic one because they can make the room that, does it. They have all the different stuff. So, to that point, Clark might have a thing. It's like they could have just kept some of the rock somewhere, just in case it needs to be accessed.
Right.
But instead, they figured out how to specifically weaponize it. But still, I mean, it's...
Yeah, Max Lord is super dangerous because he knows all about this stuff now. He created Bizarro.
Yep.
So I just think Max Lord is this huge, like, footnote here.
Yeah.
That I don't think we can ignore Max here.
Flashpoint, he didn't exist.
That's true. Flashpoint. I really hope they just say in the next episode, wasn't that weird how Flashpoint erased Maxwell Lord?
I just think it would be great if they, in the first crossover they have with the Flash and Supergirl, like when he comes back, like all of a sudden she starts having memories of all this stuff.
Yeah,
and then realizes that, oh man, they just do a few little flashbacks from season 1.
That would make me so satisfied as like a viewer and fan, like when they actually do the actual big crossover with Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow, that they have memories and you have like season 1 footage.
Yeah,
which I would assume they had the rights to show season 1 footage from
yeah,
CBS.
for sure.
We saw some tonight, right?
Yeah, a little bit, unless they reshot it.
I doubt it because that recap, the previously on, that was like straight up footage from the first season. So I don't think that's an issue. So I would really love it if he did have like just a Max Lord thing happening and he fades away.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And just a lot of added in footage of like Superman killing Doomsday. And like all those other amazing things that we just
it all happened off screen.
You did need to see that.
Yeah. So let's talk about powers used.
Oh man, you wanted to save the best for last?
We'll save the best for last.
Okay, so we got like your heat vision, and I guess we're gonna focus on Kara.
Well, let's talk about. We can talk about both because I don't think any of them used a power the other didn't use.
True. Yes, you had your flight, your invulnerability. They're both bulletproof, doing that.
They both use speed to be able to get to the rocket in time.
X-ray vision,
strength,
super strength. I don't think anybody used telescopic vision or super hearing. I don't remember.
I don't remember super hearing.
But of the powers they did use, I didn't see anybody using anything inefficiently.
No.
In fact, when you're talking about when she was saving the building, she was so smart. She built that tower support structure thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Kara, do that.
Right.
That's awesome. Of course you do that. But of course,
the best one, which was the second power used, I believe.
Outside of like maybe flight.
Yeah, because and technically strength when she rips off the pod door. The best power, as always, is freeze breath.
Freeze breath by this Superman very early in the episode.
Second power he uses. He flies up. He uses freeze breath.
And he uses it so smartly. He's not just showing off. It was just... I mean, we've been waiting... Like in Smallville, we were so gypped because like I don't remember, to be honest with you.
It was once in season 10.
And I'd have to go back and watch. It happened so quickly. I
missed it. And with Smallville, it wasn't. He had super breath that he used a lot, where he just blow. It would never be freeze breath. But then once in season 10, he randomly used freeze breath, and they never even talked about it as if, oh, this is a cool power. It was like whoever wrote that episode just assumed, hell, it's been 10 years. Surely they've given him freeze breath.
Maybe there was like a freeze breath.
It was the episode with where Tess, they went back to the orphanage where she was raised.
Oh, okay.
And he froze the chain so it would snap.
Well, of course I forgot about that. Good grief.
But here, second power used, freeze breath, amazing. Yeah. Oh my god.
So you want to win me over, Tyler Hoechlin, use freeze breath, and you did. So Supergirl, Superman forever.
Credits could have rolled right there, and we would have given it a 10 out of 10.
So satisfied. And I don't know if I would like freeze breath as much as I do if they just hadn't denied us for so long. Because why the heck wouldn't you be using this power all the time? It doesn't make any sense.
It's just and I loved in season 1 where they had the Bizarro with the heat breath and freeze vision. It was, you know what? Kudos to all of the Supergirl writers for knowing what powers are best.
Knowing the best one.
According to us.
According to us amateur super Kryptonian experts. I don't even know what to call it anymore. Here's another thing. The whole beef between Hank Henshaw and Clark Kent was over, he had Green K, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, I can understand why Superman's kind of upset about that, but shouldn't he also be upset that, hey, Martian Manhunter, I also don't like the fact you can use your mind powers to, like, control me at any second.
He can't. They actually pointed out in season 1.
Did they?
They pointed out in season 1 that he can't use it on Kryptonians, a point that your cousin likes to bring up and finds very hilarious.
Well, they weren't laughing tonight in the season premiere.
No.
But yeah, I forgot about that, just like I forgot about the season 10 episode of Smallville.
Yes.
Breath. Well, another thing to explain, so I'm happy.
Were there any other interesting little facts or stats? One thing I would like to say is we are probably not going to talk about the person found in the pod, just because for anybody who doesn't know who that is or what the history is.
Well, I mean, yeah, I say we'll leave it
for now.
Surprise. I think we would both pretty much know already.
Yeah.
And I don't know, depending on your fandom, you may already piece it together, even without any IMDb casting or whatever, or rumors read on the internet.
Right.
You might be able to piece it together. But an interesting take.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of leave it alone for now.
Yeah. But was there any other interesting little facts or stats or?
We mentioned Lena Luthor before. Did you mention that she in previous incarnations was Lex's sister or daughter?
Yeah, she was in post crisis. She was Lex's daughter. Her mother, when she gave birth, went into a coma, and Lex medically induced her to keep her in a coma because he didn't want his daughter's love to be split between two parents.
Sounds rational.
Normal, rational thing that you do. And then, of course, his daughter went from being like a little girl to like a teenager pretty much instantly, who is now working for Brainiac because of comics. Comic book science.
Comic book logic right there.
Yeah, if you want to see some really good Lena Luthor stuff, check out the Robot Chicken DC Special 2.
Really?
And they do a lot of stuff with Lena in that, which is pretty funny. Lena wanting to date Superboy, but Lex not over his dead body, all that sort of stuff. It's pretty funny.
Very nice. That's one of the things we like to do on Supes On Podcast, like to drop a big fat stat knowledge bomb on you.
To be fair, Lena in the Silver Age was Lex's adopted foster sister. And then post Infinite Crisis, I'm sorry, I'm getting him backwards. Silver Age, she was just Lex's younger sister. Post Infinite Crisis, pre New 52, because comics, she was Lex's foster sister, but she wasn't really utilized much post Infinite Crisis. She was mainly, from my knowledge, from what I've read and seen, she was used quite a bit in that post Infinite Crisis as Lex's daughter. I've never read any of the Silver Age stuff, so I'm not really sure about that.
Well, on our Instagram, I kept on going on and on about how Jeremy Bruner is the Silver Age expert, but not on Twitter.
Jeremy Bruner's number one realm of expertise is Lena Luthor in the Silver Age.
Specifically, Lena Luthor, Silver Age only, please. Thank you. Speaking of Twitter and Instagram, we're at Supes On Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and we were doing a little bit of live tweeting for tonight's season premiere.
Yeah.
So I like to keep that up as often as we can. And the whole point of this is to review every episode of season 2
for sure
of Supergirl.
And we want to know what you think, so please tweet at us. Let us know what you thought of tonight's episode. Let us know. You can also email us at supesonpodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. So hit us up. The big ones were all around social media. The big ones are Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook.
Yeah.
Let's see. An email. The website, supesonpodcast.com.
Yeah. And most importantly, let's talk about what's going to happen next week. So, yeah, the big villain for this, at least this first story arc, is going to be Metallo. Yes.
It's hilarious because he goes to Cadmus, right? He gets shot by Lena.
Right.
And Cadmus picks him up, and the evil scientist lady, who I thought was going to be Lena, but is not,
Yeah.
who has yet to be revealed.
Yeah.
She said, it was hilarious. She said, "John Corbin is dead. Long live Metallo." Do you like that, Metallo? I thought of that just
I
now.
thought of that just now, yeah.
It's like, okay, she's just like, did you already have the name Metallo? I kind of hope Metallo's like stands for something like metal,
Exoskeleton,
yeah,
terrestrial, alpha,
Lena Luthor.
Lena Luthor, operative.
Yes, that's what Metallo stands for in this one. Speaking of like, I thought Linda Carter was supposed to be on this show. Was she on season 1? I just missed it.
I don't know. I honestly have not.
Like the woman who played Wonder
yeah,
Woman.
no, yeah.
I thought she was supposed to play the president. I read that somewhere, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe because I crammed season 1 to get caught up. Maybe she appeared, and I just completely missed it. But to my knowledge, she's yet to appear.
Yeah, I have no idea. If she did appear in season 1, it's very possible that I wouldn't. I'm not. I know who Linda Carter is, but I don't know that I'd recognize her 100%. So.
I mean, come on, the lady from Super Troopers, obviously.
But so I did think it is interesting to see what will happen next week. We'll have Metallo with the green kryptonite fighting Supergirl based off the next time on. It'd be interesting to see if they have Metallo last more than an episode. Yeah. And if maybe we'll even get to see the different variations with the Red K Metallo eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome that they have a Metallo here. I mean, it is saying that Metallo was not active for the 12 years Superman was until just now. But that's fine, I guess. Yeah. And it is interesting that Metallo's here because his first appearance was with Supergirl.
Supergirl in the comic. The first appearance of Supergirl was in the same issue as the first appearance of Metallo.
Which we reviewed.
Which was Action Comics number 252.
And you come back and listen to our review of that as well.
Yeah. And, that's very... I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I thought that's very cool. And I like that Superman's not going away.
Yeah.
He's appearing for at least one more episode. The next episode, I believe, is called Children of Krypton.
Interesting.
I believe that is the episode title, so...
Maybe we'll get some flashback scenes of Kara babysitting and having to change Clark's diapers. And
I really hope they do a thing where Clark pees in her face or something. As an adult, what... No,
it's not weird on Krypton.
It's not. I really want Jimmy just to walk into some really weird Kryptonian.
Let's talk. We didn't really talk about that real quick before we end it. What did you think about Kara's sudden "I don't like you anymore" as a person, like as a boyfriend?
Yeah,
it just seemed really out of nowhere to me.
Yeah, it was so abrupt, and this is why we almost just glossed over it entirely. It's like, oh, by the way, Jimmy, I don't like you anymore for no reason. I'm like, oh, here we go, typical. It was CW.
What it made me think of was she's like, last year I found out, they were setting up the season 2 arc. Last year I had to figure out what it was to be Supergirl. This year I have to figure out what it is to be Kara Danvers. I just wanted Jimmy to be like drunk Dawson from Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Kara's trying to find herself. Where's Kara?
Yes.
Where's Kara?
Can we get drunk Jimmy?
Can we get drunk Jimmy, and can he be as cool as drunk Dawson?
I'm sure Cool Jimmy can get his. I'm not worried about Cool Jimmy. It's just a Kara, like, come on, pick somebody.
Or don't. I mean, she's fine. She didn't have to pick somebody.
She didn't have to. She don't need no man.
She can be on her own.
But it's going to be interesting if they introduce a new love interest. I would assume, this being a CW show, there will be a love interest.
Yeah.
For Kara.
It might be the mysterious man in the pod.
Could be. Or it could be, hey, you know what, Metallo? You're not that bad of a guy.
If Metallo is still being played by Brian Austin Green, then...
Or the guy from Superboy.
Money and Babes. Money and Babes.
Well, speaking of Money and Babes, we got to wrap this up.
All right. Well, join us next week. Please write us at supesonpodcast@gmail.com. Tweet at us. Let us know what you thought of this week's episode. And we will see you next week for Children of Krypton.